high-powered delegation from the Pan-Niger Delta Forum met with President Bola Tinubu just before he decided to impose a state of emergency on River State late on Tuesday. A former governor of Akwa Ibom State, Obong Victor Attah, a prominent member of PANDEF, was a part of that visit. He joins us now to speak about what assurances they may have gotten from the president and if the forum lived up to its own part of the deal in implementing the agreement. In all its engagement with the president, did PANDEF have any inkling of an emergency rule declaration? And what will the forum do now that President Tinubu has played his hand? Good afternoon, sir, and welcome to the program.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
All right, let's get straight into it. Of course, the last time we saw PANDEF was when there was a meeting with the president, and the statements that emerged from there were encouraging Governor Fubara to be humble and to try and see how he can create a peaceful environment in his state. I believe the president's words were "stoop to conquer." Now we are in a state of emergency. What's your take on all of the developments of the past few days?
Well, the development in Rivers State is quite distressing. And I believe it's a manifestation of a lot of the problems that are facing Nigeria as a country. And you know, I have to bring up two names here, PANDEF and Chief Edwin Clark, because they stood for what Nigeria should be, and they saw a vision that has not been realized. And I bring up their names because some of the parting words from Chief Debanjo was, if Tinubu misses this opportunity, Nigeria is finished. He was talking about the opportunity to restructure the country into a true fiscal federal arrangement with autonomous federating units under one umbrella called country Nigeria. And of course, Chief Edwin Clark's words were, don't give up trying to bring about a better Nigeria. That was almost like an injunction. So those of us that have been disciples of these two people have to follow through with what they say. So I will tell you what I saw in the two people and compare that to what is happening to Rivers State. One of the things that they know was wrong with Nigeria was godfatherism. The second was the misuse or abuse of power. And of course, the third was the lack of accountability. So I like to look at what's happening in Rivers State in the light of those three headings and see whether we are achieving any of it. So if you permit me and to go on, I'd like to look first at godfatherism. Because of the total lack of internal democracy within the parties, some people or persons even claim that they are the ones that are making governors. Why should anybody make a governor? That's the fundamental issue. Isn't it the people that should elect their governor? You know, I was put at the head of a 7-person committee to try and broker peace between Wike and the governor. We met several times with the governor. We could not meet with Wike. But that's not the point here. Is that I heard Wike at some point say that if Senator Mwabara was his father, he would have denounced him. So he's accepting the fact that a son can denounce a father. So even if it is he alone or with a group of persons that made Fubara, and you assume that Fubara has now denounced him, as he claims, why should he deny Fubara the right that he claims the right to denounce his father, a right that he arrogates to himself? That's one of the basic questions. And it bothers me because unless and until we clear this issue that the person representing us or leading us should be a leader selected or elected by the people, we will not make progress. So it's a very disturbing situation, therefore, to find a governor that was elected by the people being sent off the seat simply because there's a political quarrel between him and his godfather. So this godfatherism must end if we are going to make any kind of progress. So if you want to ask me questions on godfatherism, I would quite gladly answer you. Otherwise, I can go on to the next topic, which is the abuse of power.
Sir, please proceed with the abuse of power. We'll come in as you progress. Thank you.
Can I go on?
Yes, please, with the abuse of power. Sir, please go on.
Do you want me to continue?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, now let me look at the issue of misuse and abuse of power. You asked me about what assurances we got from our president over the matter. We were very encouraged because we went to the president. The president honored us. He really honored us. And then the very next day, his minister was on television at a media chat abusing us, telling us that we are the most unreliable or useless organization that anybody can rely on. Is he telling us that the president didn't know what he was saying when he honored us and said he was throwing the ball back in our court and asking us to go and persuade Governor Fubara, as you said, to stoop to conquer, or at least go and obey the Supreme Court rulings on all the issues, particularly on the matter of presenting his budget to the House of Assembly people. And we know, because I worked as the head of that committee, I know that Fubara made an effort. First of all, he invited the House of Assembly people. They shunned his invitation. They didn't attend. He made an effort to go and present the budget. We all saw it on television. We were told that it was just playing to the gallery. Even if it was playing to the gallery, why not give him a chance to present this budget? Since the Supreme Court, in its wisdom, had made it a condition that unless and until he presents the budget, the money cannot be released to Rivers State. But he didn't have an opportunity. Then he wrote a letter. He wrote a letter, which was even published in the newspapers, that he would like to come and present the budget on the 19th of March, I think it was. All we heard was that the House was going on indefinite recess. But even then, while on that recess, they were able to issue a notice of impeachment, if you wish, because they were listing all the gross misconduct that the governor had committed. And so he was not able to present the budget. That's the way we see it. In my theory might be different, I don't know. But the next thing that happened, the president who had asked us, I'm putting the ball back in your court. Go and persuade the governor to do this. We wrote him a letter on the 17th saying, we cannot reconcile two people unless we can talk to the two people. We've been talking to Fubara. We'd like to talk to your minister. Please persuade him to meet with us so that we can hopefully resolve this matter amicably. That letter was written on the 17th. The very next day, the same president that had encouraged us to go and do this announces a state of emergency. So look, let me read something to you, because at my age, I forget certain things. But the state of emergency, my understanding of state of emergency, is taken from the teachings of some popes in the Catholic Church to which I belong. And they say as follows: power must serve the common good, and law must remain the servant, not the master of human dignity. A state of emergency cannot be arbitrarily imposed, cannot be an arbitrary imposition of state power, but a measure conditioned by justice, necessity, and proportionality. So even in times of crisis, government remains bound to the principles of subsidiarity and the common good. Emergency powers must be subject to legislative oversight. In an emergency, there must be an exit strategy. Emergency declaration must be a genuine response to crisis and not a tool for political maneuvering. It must not be used for the consolidation of unjust privileges, and it must therefore only be used with prudence, justice, and commitment to human dignity.
Oh, all right.
We can ask the question, which of these conditions have been satisfied by the declaration of this state of emergency?
Indeed.
We were not looking for an exit strategy. We were looking for a means of resolving the matter so that there'll be no crisis. We were sure that we could get there if we could only talk to the two parties. But when one of the parties refuses absolutely to talk with us, what were we to do? And the president who had sent us on this mission, instead of backing us, as he said, come to me if you have any difficulty, suddenly announced a state of emergency. We see that as an unnecessary, excessive use of power. And this power should have legislative oversight. That's why I must thank the Senate, even though I don't understand how the Senate arrived at the support for the president, but I must thank them for at least suggesting that there must be a committee to try and reconcile these two people. So maybe the PANDEF committee was not good enough, but there must be a reconciliation because every conflict at the end of the day must end up at the negotiation table. So we are quite concerned about this situation in Rivers State because it's an unnecessary thing to have happened.
Well said, Mr. Attah. Thank you for giving us thank you for breaking down the timeline and the events that played out during that time. You made mention of what the late Pa Adebanjo said, taking from your quote. You mentioned that he said if the president misses this opportunity, that Nigeria is finished, according to the quote that you gave us. Now that you've aligned the three issues, the godfatherism, misuse and abuse of power, and lack of accountability, paired with the fact that your council was relegated to the background and the president proceeded as he so chose, how do you see things playing out with the realities and the elements that were left with at this time?
I don't know, because what this is we didn't even see that there was sufficient crisis to warrant what has happened. And it seemed like it was a premeditated, predetermined something to happen because the president did not wait for this legislative oversight to agree with him that there's a state of emergency before or after I declare, before implementing it. The appointment of the administrator was announced even before the Senate could meet, and he was sworn in. And I know that our president is very averse to military rule. Let's not forget the attitude that he took as the head of ECOWAS when 3 West African states out of ECOWAS decided that they will overthrow the elected democratic government and take over. He was prepared to take the ECOWAS military and overthrow those military juntas and bring back democracy. So here you are. And I also remember that even when President Babangida stepped aside, he didn't bring a military man to head his interim government. He brought a civilian. But here you are, you can bring a military person and the whole place is militarized. So what are we saying? Those are the kind of things that we just don't understand. So for me, I don't know. All I can do is hope that, and what is the exit strategy? After 6 months, what's going to happen? Unless, of course, we comply with what the Senate has said, set up and reconcile. At the end of the day, there has to be reconciliation. But it is unfortunate that we have to get there because as far as I'm concerned, going back to the issue of godfatherism, the only contract a governor should have should be the social contract with the people whom he represents. But it seems it is different. Look at what happened in Kaduna. There was a breaking up of, godson and godfather. But the governor is still allowed to go on and function. But in Rivers, there's a breaking up, and the governor is not to go on and function. Because some of the people we talked to were saying, oh, if they want to be subtle, they said there was an understanding. Others bluntly came out and said there was an agreement. What sort of an agreement? So really, it seems that we are subverting the constitution of Nigeria totally to personal whims and caprices. And that is what is objected to here, that you cannot use emergency laws to consolidate unjust privileges. I think unjust privileges are being conferred on somebody here. That's really how we see it. And we think it is completely wrong.
The question, what is the exit strategy? Because that's what's on a lot of people's minds. Currently, we've heard various reports from within and around Rivers State that the whereabouts of the governor is still a mystery to many. Some reports are saying that he's being hosted next door in Bayelsa State by Governor Doye Diri. So there's a question about what becomes of Siminalayi Fubara from here? That's the first part. The second part is what becomes of opposition politics in Nigeria? Because what we saw on the floor of the assembly was very questionable at best. So what are your thoughts? Are we just headed to a one-party state, and should we just stand by and watch that happen? Along with Siminalayi Fubara, is he going to have to maybe join the APC to make his problems go away?
Well, first of all, Fubara should not have left the seat. He should have remained governor, in our opinion. There was no reason to remove him. So where he is, I don't know. And what happens to him, only God knows, perhaps. And then, even if we're heading towards a one-party state, it wouldn't be so bad. Well, I think we are heading towards a complete dictatorship. There's nothing to rein in the powers of the... So this system, I want to plead with Nigerians, please, this system is wrong. This system allows the president to become a dictator if he wants to. And that is completely wrong. We don't have a proper democracy where the sovereignty still resides with the people. And I keep insisting. Look, let me just say this. If we had a parliamentary system, the prime minister would have gone to the parliament and said, there is this problem in this area, and I want to declare a state of emergency. It would have been debated, and it would have been agreed that this is sufficient trouble in that area or disturbance in that area that, yes, go ahead and decline. Everybody would know and would have. But I can't even see what was the situation in Rivers State that warranted anybody to think about a state of emergency. A pipeline was said to have been blown up. None of the militants claim responsibility, which is their pattern. So I don't think it was even a matter of thinking that it was the militants that did it. So how did that one happen? Was it something that happened so that there'll be an excuse to declare a state of emergency? Or what was it? Nobody seems to know. So it is the exit plan still remains a proper sitting down and telling somebody, if you feel your son has denounced you, take it. Because you have agreed that a son can denounce a father. Mm-hmm. Let's have a complete reconciliation and leave the governor to function. And this reconciliation and understanding must be reached within the next 6 months, which unfortunately we have to face. I don't think it was necessary for us to get here. We were not, as I will repeat myself, we were not looking for an exit plan. We were looking for a reconciliation that would have prevented what is going on now if PANDEF had been allowed to function.
Well said, Mr. Attah.
So this declaration is preemptive.
Yes. Now, based on what you just said about this being preemptive, you also mentioned that you think this script was more or less premeditated in spite of the discussions that happened with PANDEF. In hindsight, since we're often wiser in hindsight, what are the signs or the warning signs that you think that PANDEF might have missed, and to an extent, how do you think that might affect this apparent breach of trust might affect future engagements with this administration?
Believe me, we had none. We had no reason to suspect that anything like this was going to happen. None whatever. All we were pleading with the president was, please talk to your minister. I think the expression we used was that we cannot clap with one hand. If we have to reconcile people, we must talk to both sides. Persuade your minister to allow us have a discussion with him. We made arrangements to bring the two of them together at the instance of PANDEF in a neutral area. We didn't want it in Port Harcourt, we didn't want it in Abuja, and we're prepared to go ahead and resolve this matter. But without any warning, without anybody still encouraging us to go. That's why we, in our communique after the emergency meeting, we said the president seems to have stabbed us in the back because he's sending us forward to go and do something. In the meantime, behind us, he does something that just brings us to a final full stop. We can't move forward. So maybe we now will be, this PANDEF committee will be replaced by a committee suggested by the Senate. But I do hope, because the way, like you said, the conduct of the Senate is, I remember that in 2014, we had a national conference. And we said every major issue must be decided by total consensus. And if there was going to be a split, in fact, some people wanted a 3/4 majority. At the end, we accepted 2/3 majority. So you do not, on an issue like this, do a voice vote. You have to count the votes and make sure that you got 2/3 majority before you can say yes. So I really am surprised that the Senate would have behaved the way they did. But thank God, they did something good. They suggested that we have this peace committee. And unless or until we set up that peace committee quickly and make them work quickly and resolve this matter, I don't know what will happen at the end of the 6 months.
All right. Now, speaking of this 6-month period, as we round up very quickly, we just have 1 minute left, sir. Will PANDEF be happy to work with and engage with the sole administrator who has been appointed?
How do we work with the sole administrator? We are not a government. We are not the House of Assembly. We are not. How do we work with them? We can only work with the presidency to reestablish normalcy, respect for our constitution. Let us respect the constitution, faulty as it is. If we don't respect the constitution, if we don't go by the rule of law, I'm sorry, then we have destroyed everything. And look, that's why I talk about accountability. Everybody says this wrong, this wrong, this wrong, this wrong. But nobody has the ability to stop this wrong thing from happening. I don't know anybody that has fully accepted the Supreme Court judgment. Everybody say, oh, it was a faulty judgment, faulty judgment. Oh, even everybody saying it's a faulty judgment, but it stands. Then we have a situation of declaration of emergency. Everybody says it's wrong, it's wrong, it's wrong, but it stands. So when will we know that the wrong thing should not stand, that only the correct thing should stand? When will we have that? So it is the system must change so that the system does not encourage this type of thing to continue in Nigeria.
Former Governor of Akwa Ibom State, Mr. Victor Attah, it's been a pleasure having you here on Newsday. We'd like to thank you for your time and insight. Thank you so much for joining us.